Um, Hello, everybody on Twitch. It looks like we're good. If you're joining us from Discord, which is probably how a lot of folks are, hello, hello. I'm sure you have probably seen me before. If not, I'm a vet. I'm from entry level, and we're joined by the wonderful Luke Davis, who is also here. You might not see him if you're a Twitch viewer. If you're on Discord, you'll see his little video there. But the more important part is that he's going to be running a really cool resume workshop with us and then going over a couple resumes, which is, super important nowadays, especially right before we go into 2026. And yeah, I think I'll let you take it away. If you want to even give yourself a little introduction before, go for it.
Absolutely. Hello. Yeah, I like that, Stacey. Hello, Discordians and Twitchites. Yes, I'm Luke Davis, he, him. Very excited to be with y'all today. Going to be going over a little bit of resume stuff, a little bit of stuff from my experience. I'll try to get through this presentation as quickly as possible to get to some live reviews. But what I've found is basically that there's a lot of similar asked questions that I get all the time. And so this is something I've been building for a little bit to try to get all those kind of questions I get asked all the time, the things that I tell people for advice all the time, to kind of get those out of the way. So I'm hoping that by doing this presentation in kind of a more presentational format, we can kind of address some of those FAQs and then get down to some live review. But this way, hopefully, it helps the most people, even if we just have time for a couple live reviews at the end. But great to see y'all. Great to see y'all. Some familiar faces too from some other communities, like the 𝐴𝐻 community is on here. A couple people there. So great to see y'all, and very excited to be with y'all today. So with that, let's get through this as quickly as possible so we can get to the fun part. Let's talk resume workshop, or what I also like to have it be known as building your character sheet. I'm a big D&D player and DM, and I kind of want to view application materials and resume as your character sheet. And there's a couple things that make a good character sheet. One is that it should be clean and easy to read at a glance. Contain the most important information, as little clutter as possible, and then accurately show your skills and strengths. So that's one of the things that I was going to talk a lot of in detail. I talk a lot about resume stuff, but if you only take 3 things away, this is kind of a highlight. Think of it like your character sheet. How can we get out all the fluff and put your most important stuff first and foremost? And as we go, I am trying to monitor Discord chat over here, so happy to respond to stuff. I might save questions towards the end to go over things, but yeah, toss your questions and notes in there for sure, because I do have a second window if you see my eyes go over here. But a little bit about me. So Luke Davis, I am a multi-class level 9 higher ed professional. Actually, basically how I started my career was 6 years in higher education admissions, working on the university side, so helping students get into college, recruiting students, all that kind of stuff. And I got the opportunity to basically go help Bungie with their intern role back in the day, which was awesome. I'm a big Destiny fan. I don't think we just moved, so I don't have any of my Destiny stuff visible, but a huge Destiny fan and Halo fan from back in the day. Worked a little bit with their intern and early career roles. After that, I got to be the assistant director of admissions at DigiPen, which really combined both of those positions of working with students. And DigiPen, for those of you that don't know, is a great school up here that does in Washington area that focuses on game design, game art, game programming, really cool programs out of DigiPen. And I'm currently managing an internship program over at thatgamecompany, which has been super, super fun. We're still pretty small on the TGC side of things, but happy to talk more about that if y'all shoot me a LinkedIn DM there. On the other side, I do a lot of volunteer work as well, which is something I recommend to a lot of people that are trying to break into the games industry, recruiting for Games for Love, which is an awesome nonprofit org, as well as the 𝐴𝐻 community, which will certainly be a familiar figure, especially with entry level. Done some really cool partnerships with everybody there. So with all of this, I have looked at a lot of resumes and I've talked to a lot of students, and I always feel like part of this is, back in the day when I was in colleges, I just had no idea that there was even gaming roles that, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm not a good enough artist to be a game art person. I don't have a coding background at all. I'm not good enough to do that. So I'm like, oh, I guess I can't have a job in the games industry. And then fast forward, was able to break in and have this opportunity. So wanting to help as many other people to do that as well. But before we talk about breaking into the gaming industry, before we even talk about resume, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a rug pull here. Before we even talk about resume, I do want to talk a little bit about the ATS. So the goal of this presentation really is talking through your resume. However, there's a lot of resources out there about how to build a good resume. There's a lot of help. There's even AI things that you can use that are pretty helpful. I'm still kind of skeptical on most AI tools that I see. But there's one in particular that I like to use that kind of is more of a job tracker. But all that to say, one of the things I want to do is kind of take a step back and look at the broader context of where does that resume even go, and let's address some myths and things about what an ATS actually is. I see a lot of misinformation online about what an ATS actually is. So my goal with this presentation is really take a step back, look at your application materials from the beginning, and then how can we present your application materials, knowing the broader context of what is they're looking at. What is an ATS, the enemy? Interesting you say that. So let's dive in. So what is an ATS? For those of y'all that have not heard this, an ATS is technically the applicant tracking system. And this is the system, the software that recruiters use to organize job postings, to put candidates in different stages, review candidates, see their interactions with the candidate. If any of y'all have ever used a CRM, customer relationship management software, things like that, super similar to an ATS. And all of that it does is really a digital file folder. At the end of the day, an ATS is a digital file folder that holds resumes, is at the end of the day what it is. Most popular ones are Greenhouse, Ashby. It's interesting to look at. At least I think it's interesting, having used these, but it's interesting to look at these and their websites and kind of see how they're talking about resumes and applications and candidates. It is not an automated system, and an ATS is not technically something that's automatically rejecting your application. We're going to dive into this a bit more, but stay with me for here. It is not an automated system. At the end of the day, it's where your application gets stored, and it's the software through which people like me, the recruiter, the hiring manager, are all viewing your application. So here's a couple examples. So I wanted to start two of the most popular ones, Greenhouse on the left and Ashby on the right. Greenhouse, you're going to see this is kind of, again, what's known as almost like a pipeline view that a lot of ATSs have, where they're showing, hey, this is what candidates have all applied to this job, or different jobs. You'll be able to see names, be able to see titles, things like this. On the Ashby side of things here, can I get this to you? Yeah, perfect. You're going to see a couple different things. Again, in this, Director of Platform Engineering, here's all the people that have applied. Recruiters able to go through the different jobs, check out people in the application review stage, which is people that, again, haven't been reviewed yet, and then move them to different stages. So you'll see here, you'll see here, this is kind of more of a candidate-specific look. That's from Ashby, but pretty much all ATSs will have something like this, where it's like they're going to go in and see this particular candidate. They're going to see what job they're looking at. They'll be able to click here to see their resume. They might be able to see scores from the different interviews and tests that they're going through, and they're going to see like feedback or notes or emails. Typically, when a recruiter is emailing you, they're coming at it through an ATS rather than just a blank Outlook, or Gmail account. They're so able to see and track, kind of their communications. So an ATS not only is a file folder for your resume, it's also a communications tool, right? That helps the recruiter communicate with candidates. So the big $1 million question is the AI in the ATS. Is there an ATS, or is an ATS an AI that will auto reject your application? I've seen people say things like, oh, you have to get past the ATS to have a chance, or the ATS rejected me automatically. And my answer is no to this. There's not an ATS that will auto reject you. It is not an AI that auto rejects applications before the recruiter even looks at it. However, that is a little bit of a caveat, and honestly, things are changing so fast even that I am updating this next portion, like literally the day before I did it, like yesterday, and today I'm updating this. There are starting to be more, like every software now, AI-assisted features in there. But I do want to be very clear about some of these things. In almost all cases, there is still a recruiter, there's still a human person that is reviewing applications and resumes that is using the ATS to help filter for the best candidate. So there's a couple different things that I'm seeing, and if you go to, and this is all public information, right? This is not anything that's secretive. If you go to any ATS website like Ashby or Greenhouse, they'll tell you how they're using things. So this is some of the AI-assisted features that are coming out in some of our different ATSs. Filtering out spam and fraud applications. We're seeing, one of the downsides of AI, we're seeing a bunch of AI applications, people that just tossed a resume in ChatGPT and said, hey, make me a electrical engineering resume. Cool. Doesn't even match what they do. So there's spam and fraud applications we have to deal with. There's people using VPNs. There's people using mass supply tools. Keywords is something that actually already existed pre-AI. Anybody familiar with basic Boolean logic or Boolean searches? ATSs let recruiters search for things like, show me all the resumes that have game design, that have Unity or Unreal in them, and search for all those resumes that have keywords, right? So that's something that's existed pre-AI and something that's continued to be used. But auto reject, there's certain things which we'll touch on in a couple of seconds that are trying to help recruiters filter, But the big thing that I want people to take away, and what I wish people realize for ATS things, is that there's still people putting in criteria. It's almost always, even if they're filtering resumes, there's still a recruiter saying, hey, we need someone in this game design role that knows how to use game design, knows how to do Unreal, knows C++, putting those criteria in, and then that's what's coming in and working out against it. But the human touch is still needed. Workday right now is currently in process of a lawsuit. There's things about bias that are essentially having to get looked at for AI and making sure that it's not something that's biased. And right now, a lot of these tools don't work super great, even if it is an AI assisted tool coming, from the back end. A lot of these tools still don't work very great. So I don't know of too many more that are happening where it's again an AI with no human input, rejecting and putting out applications in there. Knockout questions is something that I want to talk about too. Sometimes if you get that auto reject email like 2 minutes after you apply to a job, one of the things that a recruiter might put in or have in a job description is say something like, hey, we need 5 to 7 years of Unreal experience and production experience. And they might do a knockout question that says yes or no. Does this person have 5 to 7 years of experience? If you answer no, that'll show up in the ATS as a flag that then the recruiter can sort by and say, well, they don't have 5 to 7 years of Unity or Unreal experience. That's a clear the requirement for this role, where we don't want to look at those candidates. So that's something that people often that I see online mistake for like an instant auto reject. And sometimes it is because, well, yes, because you don't fit the criteria for the job, which is a whole different discussion, but that's often what I find there too. But again, when I see this, and this is something changing, like honestly, tomorrow something could come out that changes my whole presentation. But for the most part, I've seen it be a tool, like a lot of things that are being added into a lot of these CRMs. But a lot of these things like keywords, Boolean searching, knockout questions were things that existed in ATSs pre-AI is one of the things that I've seen so far. This is something I added pretty recently. This is currently an example that Ashby has on their website of what their AI assistance looks like. However, they'll even say here that the AI in here has basically anti-bias things. Like if you were to put in here, instead of doing things that are probably going to be on the job description, like value selling, 3 years of experience, initiatives or programs, generated over $1 million in revenue. If you were to put something in here that says like male candidate, things like that, it'll actually stop you from doing that because that's something that's a bias. That's not something that's an actual job requirement. And even then, this just will show up as it doesn't make any decisions based on this filter. It'll just flag the candidate as a certain percentage score and basically say like, hey, this candidate probably has a pretty close score to what you're looking for, but it doesn't make a decision either way. The recruiter still looks at that. So this is a little bit newer. Again, a lot of these don't work super great, but this is a little bit newer implementation. The thing I want to be clear about too is that this is still how a recruiter, even pre-AI, one of the things that when you look at these job requirements of the role, these things right here are most likely when you look at the job description, the thing that says, hey, these are the 4 biggest requirements that we need for this job. And if you don't have those 4 biggest requirements anyway, then you're probably not a good fit for the role, which is a hard thing to hear. But again, that's one of the things that I've seen. And this, again, could change, but this is so far one of the opportunities that I've seen. But again, there's no decision based out of this. The recruiter behind the job is still the person taking this information and using it to help filter their candidates down. So let's talk a little bit about the recruiter. So that's a little bit about the ATS, but let's talk a little bit about the recruiter. The recruiter on the back end, again, it's one of those professions where if you ever see a recruiter, I dare you to ask them like, hey, did you want to be a recruiter when you grew up? Because I don't think a lot of people know what recruiters do until they accidentally become them, kind of how it ended up on my side of things. But they're a really important part of roles and how roles get done. So not only does a recruiter basically manage the job once it's live, recruiters often are meeting with the hiring managers, right? So meeting with the art director, meeting with the producer, going over the job description with them and saying like, hey, like this job description is a good one, or like this job description it's asking for too much, or it's not senior enough, and kind of managing the pre-posting, managing the posting itself, and then managing kind of that interface with the candidates too. So posting jobs, scheduling interviews. Sometimes there's recruiting coordinators that just focus on scheduling. I know that was something I could not do because it melts my brain. But recruiting coordinators that just focus on that. People like sourcers. So sourcers is often people that go after passive talent. So this is why it's always so important to have your LinkedIn updated. You never know who's going to find you on LinkedIn using tools like LinkedIn Recruiter to search for candidates. You never know who's going to find you. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is updated, because sometimes it is, especially in the gaming industry, some of these roles are so specific that we say, hey, we really want to find this particular person that knows this particular thing about production or this particular instance of how to use Unreal in the way we want. So that's kind of searching passive talent, but then also managing the active talent, quote unquote, the people that have applied to the actual application. So speaking of the job posting, let's talk a little bit about this. So obviously this again is once the job actually gets posted. Typically most jobs, once they get posted, and again, the whole thing is, I'm getting to resume, but the whole thing is once your resume comes in, this is the context to know about what's going once you submit your resume. Often once you submit the resume, recruiters will then find the top candidates, do a basic screening call with them, talk more about kind of the nuts and bolts, talk about the interview process and plan, and do some general screening to say, hey, do they have the basic requirements? Sometimes, like with AI right now, sometimes it's, hey, is this a real actual human? Is this not an AI person that's like using ChatGPT to skip through their interview, right? Like it's a human check. And then sending the most qualified candidates to the hiring manager for the next one. So that's often, again, the more technical piece where you're really asking questions of people that know the discipline, right? As a recruiter, I love it because my ADD, I get to know a little bit about everything from production to art to programming. Like I, get to work a little bit with all of this. But the hiring manager is a person that's been in, maybe production for 20 years that is looking for their next associate producer. They're going to have that interview. And then often there's a whole mess of things in between. So sometimes it can go straight to a group interview. Sometimes it can be a test. Aspects like design or art often like to do some type of test, or programming often like to do some type of test in the middle of this interview round. And then the recruiter comes back around for some of the offer conversations, negotiating salary, all that kind of stuff. And then often we kind of pass things off to like HR to finalize details. But that's generally speaking across pretty much most roles. This is kind of the timeline of behind the scenes of what the job posting looks like. So deep breath. That was a lot of information. Your main quest with your application materials and with your resume is to make sure that your resume materials don't stop you from getting to the interview stage. Before you can even get to the interview stage, you have to get noticed. You have to have them move you forward, right? Easy things not to do that I've seen, again, having done this for not nearly as many years as other people, but enough years now, I've seen all of this, broken portfolio links, broken websites, basic websites, resume documents that are wrong, wrong name, wrong candidate, or just not a resume doc, wrong employer name on a cover letter, grammar errors, fraudulent 𝐓𝐇𝐈𝐒, fraudulent materials and things that are like AI assisted where it's clear that, hey, this is not actually matching your background. This is another reason why LinkedIn and social media presence is important, because it can help us verify and just be like, hey, this person, this looks to be either they had to fake their resume and their LinkedIn completely, or this looks to be something that's actually correct. But we don't want anything in the way of getting through to that next stage with your resume and application materials, right? So let's chat a little bit more about resume specifics. I'm going to have examples later, and we'll go over, hopefully I have time to go over some. I know we're going a little bit long here. But your resume has one goal: get you noticed and get you into that next stage to get that interview, right? So when you're looking at resumes, one of the biggest things, again, we're thinking about it like a character sheet. How can we show your skills and strengths authentically? How can we show your most important, information on there? These are all pretty basic resume tips. And I'm going to be honest, I am not even the most expert person on how to do a resume. Having done this for recruiting itself since 2022, looking at application materials and stuff for the university. But I will fully admit that I'm not a resume expert. However, there's certain basics that will take you really, really far if you can master some of these things. And then also, I find that just a lot of people don't know the why of why you're putting the resume in. Like, why does it matter to have your resume show school and personal work? Why does it matter to have action verbs? It's because at the end of the day, there still is that human looking for it. And how does that human, both the recruiter, when I'm looking at resumes, I might look at, as a recruiter, you might look at hundreds of resumes a day. The hiring manager may not look at as many. They might be looking for different things than me. So how can we kind of put that all in a bow and put your resume in the right place? So I definitely recommend following people like, I have a whole list of people at the end of my presentation, but following people like Richard King on LinkedIn, people that focus on resumes. There's some conflicting information out there, but I'll say an easy test is how much are they charging for their resume services? If it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars, I would find information elsewhere. You can find a lot of good information for much less, if not free. But again, some of these basics: show your impact, show your results, show finished projects. One of the things that I find a lot for early career or students is show me something finished, whether it's whether it's a AAA game like 𝐀𝐁𝐎𝐒 Obscure or not. Like, show me something that you finished and executed on and got to a point where you weren't just having ideas, but you were able to do a game jam project. You were able to finish a D&D homebrew. If you're a game designer, like, show me something finished is something I tell a lot of early career and student folks. And then show relevant experience too. When you're on a resume, it's not meant to be not meant to be something that's like a master document in terms of every single thing you've done. It's great and sometimes even better to kind of tweak it per the jobs. So that's gonna be something we'll talk about more with examples. But let's talk about another tip that I see. One of the best exercises that I recommend for people doing a resume, one resume to rule them all. Make a master resume. Put everything on there that you can think of. Put every single certification you've done, every educational background, put every job you've had. Whether I started off in retail. Retail teaches you a lot about the human experience. I've learned arguably more in my retail jobs about how to work with people than in other jobs. Do a master resume, put everything on there. Keep that and don't touch that. Just keep that as a folder. And when you're applying to a job, take that master resume, specialize it, take things out that aren't relevant. If you're applying to a game design role and a lot of your background is in residence life or higher education, whatever it is, find a way to maybe still mention it, show that, hey, like, I have professional experience, but keep the majority of the resume tailored to the job and what they're looking for. And again, this is harder. Like, I understand when I see people posting, like, I applied to 400 plus jobs. You could certainly do that, but you're probably going to get diminishing returns, especially if you're not tailoring that resume to those different jobs. People will go back and forth on this, but I think most of us would say that it's better to do less applications with more personalized resumes. And how can we do that? We'll talk more about that too. But I think that's one of the generalizing. And one of the biggest things that helps to do this is have the master resume that you then tweak rather than trying to refresh your document every single time. You might forget things too. It's easy for us, or it's easy for me with my ADD to forget things. Like, sometimes in a job, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that I did that. I forgot that I built that documentation from scratch or did that event for, however many people. So I think having the master document is really good. And the bonus tip is the me-doc. I really like this. I think I learned this from a couple previous bosses, but in a me-doc, take something that just write stuff down as you complete stuff in the job and say, hey, I did a really cool event today. I managed someone. I was in a managerial position. I did one-on-ones. Write that all down somewhere, because you might also forget that your job, a lot of jobs are more complicated than they sound. You wear a lot of hats. So have that document running, because otherwise, for me, when I come back to it, when I, and you never, whatever, let's just say when you're looking for a job, it's not like you're like, wow, I'm sitting down happy and not stressed to go look for this job. You're like, I need a job now. You're not in a great frame of mind to maybe always remember the cool things that you've done, and it's easy to sell yourself short. So that's one of the things that helps me, for sure. Skip that. We already talked about that a little bit. Yeah, tailor based on the job description for sure. Yep. Okay, so let's get into examples. So this is an actual real life template. This is not a real person. It's actually probably an AI generated photo. But the reason I put this in here is because this is an actual Canva template. If you are a Canva user, you will see this if you search for resume templates. And I don't think it's a very good resume template, unfortunately, to whoever designed it. It's very pretty, but this is not one of my favorite things. And I've seen so many resumes that look a lot like this. So let's kind of dive into this from the recruiter perspective here. Yeah, Stacy, not to use Canva. I think I love Canva. Like, this presentation is made in Canva. I think it's really good to like help people that have I know enough about graphic design to have basics, and I know I'm also not a professional. And I don't think it's a good place for resumes. If you know what to do, you can make your own resume template great. And we'll do that in the next one. We'll show what I actually did with Canva. But basically, Canva just has way too much fluff. So let's talk about this. One of the things that I see from a resume, again, we're thinking about this like your character sheet, right? This is not a good character sheet because it does not focus on the right things, and it's not meant for the human eye, right? When I'm looking at this, when a recruiter is looking at this for, this is the one of 100 resumes I'm going to look at today, and I'm looking for a specific role, a couple of different things. I don't know if y'all can see my mouse. I don't know if there's like a mouse feature on this the way I'm presenting, but I'll just kind of talk through it instead. Oh, you do? Okay, perfect. So one thing I always talk about with resumes is think about your white space, right? If you're a designer, if you have any artistic background, you've thought about white space before and how does it look like? This is all, like, what is this? A third of the page is taken up by this picture and his name. And I guess this is maybe the job he's interested in, and 3 cool little dots. That's a third of this whole page on a one-page resume that does not have any information about why I should hire you, right? Other thing, sliders. This is one of my biggest pet peeves. I hate sliders. Don't put sliders in there. Don't put progress bars. Don't put. I understand in the video game industry, I think we're always trying to like gamify it. Like let's make it look like something that's a little bit more like cool to the industry. This is such a subjective thing. I have no idea. Like why is staff and user training a little bit higher than software development? Does that mean he's got more staff and user training background, like, or knows more software that's related to this versus his software dev? I've seen people do like stars, 4 out of 5 stars. I'm like, okay, does 5 stars mean you're certified and 2 stars mean that you watched a YouTube tutorial? Like, we have no idea. So don't put those. One of the biggest things I'll recommend in this next one, and actually I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to this and kind of start with actual revealing this in order. Picture. Let's start with picture. Picture is something I for the most part, people will say not to put on. One, because it takes up a lot of white space that people don't need to see. They can do something with their own on your LinkedIn. Have a good picture on your LinkedIn. Save it on LinkedIn. Don't put it on your resume. The other unfortunate reality is that picture can open you up to bias and people that are doing implicit bias, people that aren't, up to date on anti-bias training. This is unfortunately the world that we live in. You want to have as few barriers as possible to when someone opens up your resume, and focusing on the actual skills and things there. The biggest reason I don't like picture though is because it just takes up space that could be showing off something else. Skill bars, we talked about that. Limited use of white space. Address is something that I see on some, but I don't think address is always necessary. One, you don't know who's going to see a resume often. Like that, yeah, it's one of those things. If you have it on your LinkedIn, be thinking about who, what information you're giving out to the public. It can be a little scary out there. It can be really good to still put your city and state, if especially as it comes to like relocation or geo markets. There's tax restrictions. Some places you have to live in a certain state to be eligible for remote. Remote does not always mean literally wherever. Sometimes there's tax implications where a company only has, hey, we only have these certain states out there. And it can be helpful to see if candidates are in that place or not. Or it can be helpful for like early career and student grads as well to note if we're going to need to look at something like a visa status or something like that. But if you're going to just do that as like state, don't do things like the full address because it's just better to protect your information. I like that from Simone. Age is another unfortunate bias thing where putting an age, think about your if you're not a recent grad, like your grad date. People can speculate based on your grad date. It's an unfortunate thing too, but that can be an easy thing to just remove and take that away from someone that's going to be like, oh, that's bias. That's too long in the industry. That's a good call out for Simone there as well. What else on here? Soft skills or hard skills? This is something I see a lot. The difference between soft skills and hard skills. We'll talk about how to like seeing it on a resume, but when you're putting on things like look for this guy. This guy is applying to be an IT project manager. Based on his resume, I cannot tell what, and then this is just the basic template, but I will tell you that I have seen resumes that look like this in terms of information on here. Like this is just the basic template. I have 100% seen resumes that look like this. I don't have any idea of knowing what kind of software this guy actually knows how to use. Has he used project management softwares? Has he used things like Jira, Trello, ClickUp? No idea, right? Generic profile or summary. His profile right now is super generic. I'm not against profile or summary sections, but if it's something that can apply to anybody else except you, try to make it something that's more unique to yourself. Try to put it something that's more, what specific impact have you had? Nobody else should be able to say your profile summary statement without lying, right? Because it should be something really specific to you. There's a ton of other people that can say, I'm an IT project manager with holistic knowledge of blah, 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 blah. If you're going to do a profile summary, make it super specific to you. Soft and hard skills. For this, too many soft skills on this resume, not enough hard skills is what I'd say for this. And we'll talk more about skills on my next slide here. But that's it. Basically, when you're thinking about soft skills or hard skills, soft skills are often like communication, like stakeholder management. What else is program management. Like those are all good things, but they're not very hard skills. And there's better ways to kind of show off some of those things that those hard skills that people are looking at. Keyword hiding. I do want to talk about this. So I've talked a lot of people, recruiters talk about keyword matching, right? So if y'all are looking at your resume, you've probably seen advice of like, hey, take the job description, take all those keywords that they put in like best job responsibilities, make sure they're in your resume as much as possible because they're going to be looking for those keywords. There's a couple downsides with this. There's a couple upsides and a couple downsides. It is true that if a job description says required skills, Unreal, program management, maybe like action RPG experience. If those are the required skills, I am going to, as a recruiter, be like, okay, these are the things I have to be look out for. I'm also going to be aware that, somebody might say game design and somebody else might say uh, encounter design, for example, or someone might say game design and might also mean level design. And like, there's a lot of leeway there. So it's like, that's why the human touch is still needed in this profession, is because it's not enough to just tell the AI to do this, because it doesn't even know sometimes what it's talking about. So keyword matching is good and real, and this is why you should tailor your resume to the specific jobs, because you want to make sure if the job is asking for something, put that thing in there, make sure it's visible in the resume. Don't assume that just because, oh, they'll see it on my LinkedIn, they'll see it on my portfolio. Make sure that you show the person reading the resume, hey, I am good at the required things that you're looking for in this job. But keyword hiding, I've seen multiple times. So there's a very easy browser extension that you can put in. So when I'm looking for a role, to basically say like, hey, I'm looking for a game designer who knows Unreal, C++, uses Trello, whatever it is, I can highlight those on my browser when I'm reading applications. And I've seen people put in really tiny text. If anybody did this in school to make your font bigger, really tiny white text, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, all the keywords from the job description to try to get past the ATS. And the unfortunate thing is, when that shows up and I see all those highlighted with my text highlighter, my browser extension, that's a really bad look of you trying to game the system, and makes me then start to question, okay, what else are you putting in that might not be accurate if you're trying to game the system like this? Again, there still is a person behind this. Think about that. But I was like, I thought my extension was broken, because I'm like, why is it showing all these extensions and all these other word highlights here? I'm like, oh, that's why. All right, let's keep going, because I want to make sure we get a little bit of time here to do this. So selectable tests is another good thing to do. Select your text. Just go and pull up your resume, select your text, and try to copy it over into a Google Drive or a Word doc. Make sure that's selectable. That also means that it's a bit easier to parse for the ATS system. But this is something that I tend to do a lot better as a resume template. So this is still in Canva. So I did, I think I built this in Canva, or I tweaked an existing template. But this is something that's much cleaner, more basic template. The couple things you can find, you can search Harvard resume template is a really good one. Amir Sadfat's resource list. If you haven't seen that, easy to find. They have a pretty good template on there as well. Something more basic like this is much easier. And think about it from the recruiter side. If I'm looking at 100 to 200 different resumes a day, I basically, you're scanning this resume, starting up here, looking at the skills. This is when I talk about hard skills, showing the actual programs and proficiencies you have in your hard skills section, keeping your soft skills kind of out of there and putting your soft skills more in your bullet texts. But I can easily scan this and I can see title, I can see what they're working on, I can see dates, I can see most important things. This is just helpful for the recruiter on there, and most likely it's also going to be more space for you to talk about your different things. Skill section matching the job description. We've shown a lot of we kind of covered a lot of these already. Again, as you're looking at the job description, and they might try to highlight different things, and you don't want to embellish, you don't want to lie, but you do want to be aware that if you're applying to a job and they tell you what the required skills are, how can you make sure that you show those, that you have proficiency in those required skills there? Clear titles, easy to see roles. One thing I see a lot, especially in the gaming industry, don't just assume explaining things. If you're working on a project, like a school project, a personal game jam, whatever it is, tell us what it is. Sometimes it is important to say, hey, I have experience with third-person action role-playing games. We're just talking about role-playing games, as opposed to top-down, twin-stick shooters or whatever it is. Sometimes that can be really important. And don't assume that they're going to go click on your portfolio. That's the hope. But don't assume that. If they just looked at your resume, would they be able to get a little idea of what you're doing there? Before we go to cover letter, I want to jump back, because I know people are I do want to kind of jump back into questions while we're on here. So let me do a quick just Q&A since we are talking about this. Let me just start from here. Okay, let's talk a bit about projects, because I'm getting questions about projects. One thing that I would say, again, school projects are great, personal projects are great. When I say finish work, it's not to say that you should never put work in progress stuff on your resume. Definitely don't think that that's, it's fine to put stuff that's work in progress, but just be intentional about how that's coming across. If I go to a portfolio and the first 6 pieces that I see in your portfolio are work in progress stuff to varying degrees of polish, that's something that is going to be looked at, right? Like if you can finish a project, finish an art piece of art, finish a model, have something that shows like, hey, I committed to this and I finished this. Still good to do work in progress stuff. You're not going to be perfect. You're always going to be working on things, but have something there that like is there, to show. Yeah, and if it's a prototype, if it's a game jam that's not finished, it's something that you still completed your portion of. Sometimes it's like, hey, I did the game design doc for this. I completed the models. The game we didn't put it on Steam, but I did the models. Like, can you show that there as well? Education placement. I'll just kind of talk generally about placement. Placement, as far as all this stuff, I like personally a skill section at the top because that's an easy way for me to just make sure, hey, I'm looking for Unreal and C++. Cool, they have it on here. Let's keep going. I like seeing relevant experience. Again, relevant means show me the stuff that's most relevant to the job. Not chronological. Like if we all have to work jobs. If you're a Starbucks barista right now while also being a level designer, don't show me your Starbucks barista thing first thing. Show me your level designer piece. Maybe put that later if you want that. But as far as like things like education, certs, additional projects, I don't think it really matters order. You might get people that argue what's best. I don't think it really matters as long as it's clear. As long as it's clear, readable, easy to scan. Those are the things that matter more to me. Again, skills are important. Titles, bullet points. There's a lot of resources on there on how to write better bullet points. This is stuff I just tossed in really quick. How to write good bullet points and impactful bullet points. But readability is more important to me than order of resume, right? They shouldn't all look the same either because there's a lot of difference there too. Okay, let me just scan through here. Wow, this is a perfect break. So I'm losing my voice, so let me do a quick water break while I scan through the questions. How proficient should you be at something before listing it as a skill? I would say the general rule for listing something as a skill is that if you were to be asked in an interview to do it, would you be like, oh shoot, or would you be like, yeah, okay, I could do that? Is the way that I kind of frame that. If you have watched a YouTube video on Unreal blueprints, but that's about as far as you got, maybe don't put Unreal unless you've actually made something, right? So the skill itself, again, you don't want to embellish. The thing, we've had like people will see candidates that get through the point to actually get to the test, and it doesn't match their resume. It's going to be faster for you and better for you if you're honest. And if that's not the end goal is not like, how do I say this? The end goal is not have the resume trick them into giving you the job. The end goal is having your resume accurately reflect you, like your character sheet. And then if that's a fit for the role, awesome, right? Because that'll be a better fit for you. It'll be a better fit for your manager. That's the end goal there. And Simone, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but when you have too many jobs in volunteer work, how do you choose what to put? I don't think I talked about length here. 1 to 2 pages is fine. People will go back and forth on 1 to 2 pages. I personally think 1 to 2 pages is fine, as long as it's either a full 2 pages or it's a dense 1 page, as long as it's scannable and readable. But how do you choose what to put? I would choose the things that are most relevant to the job you're applying for, which is kind of a cop-out answer. But if you're applying for a community moderator position, pick your coolest community moderator. Pick the things with the most impact. Sometimes it's the jobs that's like, hey, these are the biggest deliverables or the KPIs that match what you're looking for. Relevant experience lets you kind of tweak a lot of those things around. Instead of thinking chronologically, think relevant and think, how can I best show with all the jobs in volunteer work closest to the job description to say, hey, this is the match, right? And that kind of goes to this next question too, of like multiple career paths, areas of expertise. Same thing there. Like if you have multiple career paths, areas of expertise, I got a ton of higher ed on my resume. Not always as relevant, so I pick and choose depending on the jobs that I've been looking at there. Okay, I think those are all the questions. I'm going to keep going a little bit and then make sure we can actually get to a review here at the end. Super brief on cover letter. If they ask for a cover letter, do a cover letter. We're seeing so many AI generated cover letters nowadays that I don't think it's something I would spend a lot of time on. There's a lot of other things I would spend more time on than writing a good cover letter. But I will say a general position, don't have it just be a resume in narrative form. Have it be something that says, hey, I really relate to this company because of XYZ, because of these cool projects, because of your vision. It can be a bit more a letter to the recruiter to say like, hey, this is why I stand out. Don't just rehash your resume in a narrative form. I think it's hit and mix. I don't know how many jobs I'm seeing nowadays that I still require a cover letter. They can be helpful, but again, there's a lot of other things I would focus on first before your cover letter. All right, we're almost getting there. This is a review, so this is all stuff we've talked about. But there's one important tip that I'm going to spend the last couple minutes on. The most important tip for getting your application past the ATS is, drum roll, networking, sort of. Yay, it's not even the resume. See how I tricked you with all that, right? You thought this was a resume workshop. The reason why, again, that networking is so big is because resumes, once you put a resume in, there's so many other things that could happen. There could be 1,000 other applicants. There could be internal applicants. There could be someone that just has exactly what the job descriptions you're looking for. But thinking outside the ATS is one of the biggest pieces of advice for when I see people like saying like, hey, the ATS is auto rejecting me. I can't get past the ATS. One of the biggest things I would love to say to people is like, hey, what else are you doing outside of the ATS, right? The ATS, as we've seen, is literally just the software that recruiters use to sort and review applications and find candidates, right? That's just one piece of it. How else are you standing? Are you updating your LinkedIn portfolio? Does your portfolio look good? What's your online presence? What are you saying on LinkedIn? People can see that. People can see your comments on LinkedIn, see your connections. How are you doing informational interviews with people in the industry to just learn from them? Are you engaging with the colleagues around you, whether it's in a game jam, whether it's in a Discord like entry level, whether it's at the ASGC community? There's so many other things that you should do even before you go to the resume itself. Especially nowadays, I think resume and is not nearly as important as networking and some of these other pieces, especially in the gaming industry, which is so small and hard to get into and has the ebbs and flows. But find this too. Mentorship is huge. There's about, last time I checked, 1,700 plus mentors on there. I'm on there on the mentor list. There's people from every single gaming discipline, I'm pretty sure, represented on the mentor list. These are all people that have opted into mentoring people. And when I say mentoring, I don't mean just like go there and ask them for a job. That's not a mentor meeting. Go there and ask them, hey, how did you end up at your role? What advice would you have given to your younger self? Use it as an opportunity to learn first and foremost, build that connection, and then maybe somewhere down the line, a month, 2 months, a year, 2 years, maybe a long time. Amir Safa talks a lot about how it took him a long time to get in the gaming industry. For me, I didn't think this was a possibility until I got lucky and got a role, but sometimes there's just not a role out there for you. So in the meantime, learn. Level up your discipline, build your network in the meantime. You can have a kick-ass resume. I think I can say that on this. You can have a great resume, and it might not just be the right time. That doesn't mean you don't have things that you could be doing in the meantime. So I love the mentor list. I talk about this all the time, but I think finding spaces like entry level, like Women in Gaming International, Women in Gaming, I have a whole list at the end, but this is one of the biggest things that I'll say on top of a resume. I find that when I talk to people about resumes, I find people in one of two camps. I find people that don't spend nearly enough time on their resume and should really work on doing this and do some studying about how to do a better resume. And then I find people that spend way too much time on their resume and are looking at every single bullet point and changing the action verbs and pulling out a dictionary, running it through multiple AIs to see which one is the best. And I think you need to be somewhere in the middle of saying at a certain point, you're going to get diminishing returns, but there's a lot of other things you can do outside of just the resume. So I know I kind of titled this resume workshop, but again, hopefully that's some of the broader context for y'all and things to work out. You know, if you're attending a resume workshop, I think you're already doing a lot of great things. So let's think about some of these other things. People to follow, job search sites. 𝐀𝐿_HQ is one of the few tools I like primarily because it has a job tracker, which is really nice. Helps you track jobs as you apply and write notes and descriptions. But again, that's kind of my resource list there. So with that, any other questions? Let me toss back in the questions, and maybe we can get those other PDFs for the resume review. But let me scroll back up and take another drink of water because, man, I'm losing my voice again. And thank you for sticking around. I know I talk fast and try to get this out, but this is really a lot of the same questions I get over and over is what I've tried to distill into this presentation here. Oh, cool question here. If you're an indie dev and do everything, what do you put as your role to avoid putting everything on? If you're an indie dev and have done everything, cool. Like show that too. Like title and role, you could just say something like, I'm trying to think of what I've seen, but I've seen people do essentially like solo developer because that kind of covers a lot of things. But then I don't think the title really matters as long as you're showing, hey, I did the art, I did all 2D art pixels for this game. I coded the backend to make it run good. I did the game design and the game design doc and designed all these systems. I shipped it on Steam myself. I did the marketing. that one I think more of just like how can you to make sure to show your experience and show that. And then the next level for me, set my carpet down here. The next level for me is then how can you still tailor that to the job you're applying to? Because if you're applying to a production, if you've done everything, I see this sometimes with indie devs and people that have a lot of experience. If they're applying to a producer role, they'll still put everything in there, but they might be looking for specific things in production that you can try to highlight and pull out the majority of. Maybe don't talk as much about the marketing Steam side if they're really looking for producers, but that's a good question. Okay to not include high school experience? Yes, unless you're applying to like intern early career roles where it's like we might want to see a little bit of the academic stuff. A lot of intern roles will stipify. That's not a word. Will specify that you should be currently enrolled in school. So that might be kind of a make or break. But in general, I don't think high school experience is really important. High school GPA doesn't really matter for most roles, except for maybe intern roles. It can be helpful if you have a really good GPA to put on for intern roles. Yeah, good question there. Years of experience is good. I like that. In case of softwares, I like including years of experience. That can be helpful sometimes. Also, some people's years are not as impactful as other people's years is the one thing I think about with that. So, but again, if you're applying for that, having your tech stack, showing your tech stack easily is good to see if there's a GitHub instead of a portfolio. So years of experience is much better than a skill bar, for sure. For sure. Okay, let's see what else I got here. I like this from Cadence, the Paper Wizard, which is another cool name. Yeah, the pros and cons of the gaming industry is that it is a smaller industry. So once you start to know people, once you are in the network and mentoring, talking with mentors, they're also really cool. Like a lot of people in the game industry want to help other people get in. The downside is it's a small industry, and sometimes there's literally just not positions and roles. I mean, regardless of the layoffs we've been seeing over the past couple of years, sometimes there's literally just not a role. And so I think for me, I found a lot of meaning in like volunteering with the ASGC community and with Games for Love, right? And finding that like, hey, you don't have to be employed in the games industry to follow games as a passion, right? To do a game jam, to talk about games all the time, to nerd out on the Game Awards. Like you have my permission to be passionate about games, find other ways to be involved in the video game industry. This is one of my other pet peeves. I think the gaming industry, if that means getting a job in the gaming industry, that's such a small percentage of people that actually can get a job in the gaming industry. I've had it, and then I haven't had it. I'm lucky enough to have it right now, and I love it. But like that's such a small percentage. But when you open the gaming industry up to be like, well, be involved in the gaming industry. Are you involved with entry level? Are you involved with ASGC? Are you talking about games? Do you love working on games? You love designing games? Like to me, I'm like that's being part of the industry. You just don't have the paying job for it, but you're still involved in the gaming industry. So I give you permission to be a part of it in whatever way you can, whether or not you have the job for it, right? Like there's a broader like gaming community that I kind of like the word better than just being involved in the gaming community than getting the job in the industry, if that makes sense. That's a whole pet peeve. I'm not going to try to I'm going to wrap that up now because I talk about that a lot. Okay. Okay. Keyword advice: owned is an action verb for some more specific terms. Owned it's not the only action verb I see, but the big thing about owned is you want to avoid using passive voice. If you look at resume, passive voice or communal voice, I see a lot of, especially for students that do school projects, I see a lot of we made a action RPG. I don't know. Action RPG is the genre we're focusing on today. We made an action RPG that was, a team of 6 that we did this. And it should always be I, and it should always be I collaborated. Maybe you collaborated with the game director as an artist. So I think that owned in itself is a great word. It's a good word because it's personal, it's you, and it's active. It's what you did, not what other people did or what you helped to do, right? So that's kind of what I think about for keywords there. Yeah, I love that. Yep. Yeah, I love all the comments in here about this. You can't control. Richard King always has a great line, but like you can't control whether or not you get a job in the industry. You can't control if you're involved in the gaming community, right? Like if I could do a little pithy sum up there, I think that'd be my biggest things there too. All right, if I didn't see your question, toss it in the chat again. I may have just missed it, but I think let's do some resume live. I have another about 30 minutes or so before I know we might go a little long. Feel free to dip if you need to because we all got places to be. But I don't know if Stacy, you have done. Good for the live reviews. We also just went over a ton of information, so I tried to, again, live reviews. I like doing live reviews. I'm always happy to do. If you send me a resume on LinkedIn, I can't. I'm trying to be better about timeline, but send me a resume on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to look over it and give advice. But I know we just went over a ton of information on resumes too, so hopefully that was helpful. Oh, how soon should you apply to a job after it's posted? Great question, Sabrina. As soon as possible is the answer. It's not always a realistic answer, but the sooner the better. Again, some of these jobs in the gaming industry, it'll literally be hundreds of applications, right? A recruiter is often managing more than one position at the same time. So the sooner the better, the faster you're in there, and the recruiter can go through applications and see yours, great. That's part of why it's important to also have the network. If you have referrals, if you know people in the industry that can do an employee referral, I don't think I even put that in my slides, but most ATSs will flag if an application is a referred. So like another employee said, hey, I want to work with Sabrina. I'm currently at X company and Sabrina would be cool. I'm going to refer her. There's specific flags like the Boolean flags I talked about and that we can see in the ATS. So that's another good thing to look at. But yeah, definitely as soon as possible. And also it takes time to do what am I trying to say? It takes time to do a specific resume, right? If you're doing it by a job description. Yep, good question. But as soon as possible, as you are able to do it, if that makes sense. Do recruiters know all countries' educational systems? I don't. I will definitely say that. Not all positions hire internationally. So I think this is something, unfortunately, the all countries' educational systems, since not all recruiters hire internationally. If we see candidates that are coming in that have a different educational background, I would just probably assume not. But how can you make that then as obvious as possible for equivalence, right? So like I've seen people put like equivalent to a bachelor's degree or equivalent to this if they're talking about education to kind of translate it into the U.S. system. But I would assume not, quite honestly. Some other recruiters, again, if positions are hiring more internationally or they have international offices, maybe the recruiters would probably know a bit more, but your basic recruiter, I'm not sure about that. Good question, though. Same day when it was posted as far as timing. I mean, if you could do that, great. But, I would worry less about same day and just like, hey, as soon as possible, a couple days, within a week. But again, that also means then that you have to be looking often or setting up job filters and alerts through like Google Alerts to look for positions, which is a lot more work to you. It's not like you can't find the right position. When you remember too, there's a human looking at this. I will say there's 100, you might see hundreds of applications for a job and 5% of them might actually be qualified. So that's part of what recruiters are dealing with now, especially with AI, is how can recruiters actually get past, AI slop applications and get to the people that are actually qualified. So I've also, I've seen plenty of cases where it's, the early people who applied weren't quite what they were looking for. And we found a candidate later that was the fit. So don't not apply just because you saw something later, because if it's still up later, it means they still haven't found that person yet, or they're still in process. But, what I'm trying to say is don't not apply just because you're like, oh, I didn't get to it within a week. Cool. Like still apply. You never know what the timetable is that they're looking at. Question 8, would it be better to wait for a referral to get back to you to apply or apply first and see if they can vouch for you after? In most systems, they'll let you backtrack it, right? So if you're like, hey, I have a buddy who's going to refer me, but I want to apply to make sure my application's in there. In most systems, they'll be able to go back and add it. So I would probably apply first and then, let the recruiter know, or let your person doing the referral know, hey, like, I think I already applied. Tell them to look for my application, but most of the time they can go back and add it. Yeah, ASAP is best. ASAP is definitely best. 24 hours, again, I would say, I would look more like 3 to 5 days. But again, you got to tailor the application. It's better to apply with a better resume that's tailored to the job description than apply instantly with a generic resume, is perhaps a hot take that I would have. But I would rather see a resume that's like, wow, this person clearly took the time to match the resume to the job description than a generic resume. And this is why when I talk about resume stuff, so much of it is dependent on the job you're applying to, that I think it's almost like a mind shift of, it's not, hey, how can I have the resume show everything about me, like a character sheet? How can I have it show my everything about me? And it's more about, how can I have this resume really show off that I'm the perfect person for this job? And I think that also takes some self-awareness to also then be realistic and say, hey, if you're going through that process and you're realizing, man, this job is asking for 5 to 7 years of experience in something I don't have, I think it's good self-awareness to be like, hey, I'm not really qualified for this position. Like, this is maybe something I'm not going to spend my energy on. This is another thing, like I've seen people say, shoot your shot, always apply. You never know what's going to happen. And I think I don't hate that, but I also want to be realistic. And especially if you're needing a job to put food on the table, be realistic about how much time you have to spend on jobs that may not be the best return on your investment, right? If you're looking at a job and they say 5 to 7 years of Unreal, and you don't have 5 to 7 years, you don't have a shipped project, if you don't have stuff they're asking for, be realistic and say like, hey, maybe I'll shoot that application off, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I'm going to spend time on things that are actually more of a fit. So it's almost like a mind shift for me of like, turn it from resume equals I'm the perfect person to resume equals how do I show that I'm perfect for this job, this particular job and job description. Okay, let's do live reviews. Sorry, Stacey. Is that did I miss a chat, Stacey, of live reviews, or is there somewhere else in a DM here? Let me open up my like a mind shift for me of like, turn it from resume equals I'm the perfect person to resume equals how do I show that I'm perfect for this job, this particular job and job description. Okay, let's do live reviews. Sorry, Stacey. Is that did I miss a chat, Stacey, of live reviews, or is there somewhere else in a DM here? Let me open up my okay, got him. Let's do some live reviews. And again, if we don't have time, I'll need to bounce at about 5:30. But if we don't have time, DM me your question, and I'll make sure to get to that as soon as I can. Talk amongst yourselves.
You guys ask great questions. Thank you for asking all of them. I know it can be like scary to ask people about resume stuff. So huge thank you to everybody who's
yeah.
That.
Great questions.
A lot of confidence. Shout out to you guys.
Hanging with us.
And thank you, Luke, for sticking around to do all this.
Absolutely. Again, I apologize for going long. I also hope that y'all will leave if you need to. But it's one of those things like, sure. I didn't learn this in school, right? Like nobody taught me how to do this. So this is a bunch of trial and error coming to you.
That's great though, because it's like the live experience. We're getting someone who's like actually gone through it, and I think that's super important.
Okay, and I am sharing screen.
Sweet.
Let me know if it comes up. Should be that dog. I like that. That dog. And let me zoom in a little bit here.
Yep, looks like you.
Okay, there we go. Okay. So I'm literally going to do this live for y'all. So if there's a little bit of awkward silence while my ADD brain tries to take in new information, this is what it's like. But let me just even talk to you what I'm thinking when I'm looking at a resume. So the couple things I'm already thinking, I like the format for this a lot. It's clean. It's a nice one pager. No, there's no pictures, no progress bars. It's easy to see title and work experience, right? And be like, all right, studios, titles, awesome. And so when I'm scanning a resume, the couple things I'm scanning first, again, this will depend a lot on the job. One thing to remember is that by the time a recruiter gets to scanning a resume, what a recruiter is looking for is they're looking at the job description that's, the same job description that you see online. They're also looking at that and saying like, okay, like does this candidate fit that job description? So when I present them to the hiring manager, they're not going to go, wow, that person doesn't even fit. They didn't put anything about game design. Why are you showing me them? So that's kind of the mindset, right? So the couple things, so I'm going to focus on game writer, narrative designer. A couple things that I'll say here. Yeah, overall, I like this a lot. Again, me personally, I like seeing a skills section a little bit higher. I kind of like skills as a, oops, sorry, didn't mean to add a comment. I like seeing skills kind of right under here, almost as like a summary and then diving into the work experience. But I know that's a super personal preference just because for me, it helps to say if I'm looking for someone that like, if I'm looking for, again, a narrative design writer role, and it's like, hey, yeah, I want someone that has Jira experience because they have a bit more project management, maybe a little bit overlap with production. Script writing is cool. Some of these things, documentation. I'd be curious if it's narrative to see, like, have you done like barks, like written barks for characters? Have you written like quests and quest design? Have you written dialogue? Like those would be some of the things I'd think about that maybe could be more of a soft skill, but could be, if the job description asks for that, then maybe add that into your skills section as a highlight. But done. Yeah, I like this too. One thing I almost might say other projects here is if you can one thing that is helpful for a recruiter. I don't know what Dark Desk Studios is off the top of my head. Maybe it's something that I should know that I am not aware of. Same with Red Service and Lone Sky. I don't recognize those off the top of my head. So saying something like solo project or personal project, 3 to 5 designers on a school project, or LLC that I've created working on my own game, like putting a little blurb here can be helpful for a recruiter to just don't assume, right? Don't assume that they know what they're looking at there. Tested and translated for scripts. I like that too. Like here we go. Branching dialogue, storylines, regional slang, localization, perhaps. Like I like seeing that kind of thing there too. Tested indie games. Awesome. Hey, yeah, I recognize. Okay, yeah, I do recognize these games then. Bramble Mountain King was awesome. Game writing, developed a narrative game. I like this too. Yeah, this is a good thing to do if you're doing jams. Jams are great. Jams are game projects, right? I've had some people be like, "Can I put a game jam on a resume?" I'm like, "Please do," because it's showing that you have that project there. This is cool. Endings, branching dialogue paths, multiple choice paths. This is cool stuff to highlight for a narrative too. Overall, this is pretty good, I think. The couple things I think about is going through some of these bullet points. Well, okay, first piece of advice, I would try to make it more clear what this actual work project is. And is it a game jam? Is it a test? Is it a thing like that? And then this is going to be something where, because you have the translator, tester narrative experience, one thing I might think about is if you're actually applying to a narrative design role, can we make sure that your narrative design shops, because you have a lot, you have game jams down here, you have education things there as well. Can we make sure that there's maybe a little bit more narrative design pieces represented? If you're applying to a narrative design role, then perhaps, some stuff on the translator or the testing pieces. Because again, think about it. It's almost like, again, you got to think about it from the job description first that you're applying to, and then how can you show that there? But I think I like a lot of the bones of this for sure. I like the format a lot. The other thing I'd be curious about is portfolio. I don't know and I know these are redacted too, so I don't know if I can pull up the links here. But especially for a narrative, if you're doing narrative and writing, I would hope that there's some level of portfolio there. And I would put that portfolio, make sure that's up here, easy to click. If you're narrative, if you have writing samples, if you have dialogue samples, quest designs that you can show, narrative and writing is one of those disciplines that does benefit from a good portfolio. And so I would definitely try to work on that and have that be something higher up too. Okay, so if I summed up, I'd say I like the format, explain a bit more about what these things are. Don't assume that I recognize these. Have a portfolio, make sure that portfolio is visible to really show off your actual narrative chops. And then if you're applying to game writing narrative positions, really try to change this and make sure that it's highlight as much stuff about narrative as possible. Because also, just to be completely honest as well, narrative design is some of the smallest fields when you look at numbers of a company, how many people are actually on their narrative team. It's one of the harder fields to get into, just looking at the numbers. So that would be something to be aware of. Maybe if there's something that's more on the production side, you have great translator and tester experience, that can be a really good way to show, like, I know a lot of the pipeline. I've been on both sides of writing, but I can also test. I can do localization. Because narrative, just to be realistic, is really hard to get into. It's often one of those things where people that are are senior that have done a lot of other things that kind of end up in narrative. It's harder, especially the entry level and early career. I would definitely say it's even harder for that to do entry level early career narrative roles. Okay, let me keep jumping because I want to respect y'all's time here too. But overall, thumbs up. I like a lot of things here. So good job, that dog. All right, let's look at this one. Da-da-da-da. Again, awkward silence while I drink water and read. Actually, I kind of lost the silence of contemplation. Oh, that's going to be my. Speaking of emo song potential titles. Okay. Okay, I like a lot of the bones here too. I will say this is not my favorite format for a couple different reasons. I think even just comparing it to this, I really, this is probably personal preference, but I do like a single column better just because it's easier for me to read, find the job titles, find the bullet points than it is a this. And I almost wonder if like the font is too big on this, because the fact that you only have like a couple paragraphs on this page makes me wonder if like the font is too big on this basic template, because there's really not a lot of space to talk about what you've done, right? When you start thinking about stuff like this, like I like that this font, you're able to actually have a lot of bullet points, and this is fit a lot of stuff on a one pager. This one, again, I don't know if it's maybe the big block up here with name and all this, but this is kind of some wasted space, and then it doesn't leave a lot of this is really, when you think about it this way, like this section right here is all that you have that actually shows what you've done. As far as specifics, you have the skill side, but this is all that the resume is showing of what you've actually done. So I would personally try to switch to a new template to get something that's a bit more, that just gives you more space. And again, everybody starts somewhere. I had to learn this all through trial and error, and just through seeing thousands of resumes at this point. But so again, I want, if I'm being, I don't want to be critical, because critical is not the right way to think about it, but maybe like a critique, or like, if I say something, I'm trying to be nice, but also like I want you to avoid mistakes that I've made, right? This is kind of the way to think about it. This profile here, I would either just get rid of that profile or make it really unique to you, right? Like again, this is a very common thing I see with profiles. It's a nice generic statement, right? The problem is you don't want a nice generic statement. You want something that's super focused and really highlights yourself, right? So I would redo this. I do like that you were intentional about doing like, hey, 5-person team. Ooh, cool. That helps me know it's not just a solo project. They know how to work with other team members. They delivered a game. I don't know what type of game. Yeah, I can't see what type of game. So again, think about, especially if it looks like mostly game design. Tell me what type of game it is. Is it a top-down shooter? Is it an action RPG? Is it a turn-based 33 light, roguelite, whatever it is? Put that in there, easy. That's one thing I almost always will tell students, especially students coming from game jams and student projects. Tell me more about your game on your resume. Obviously, you probably have a portfolio too. If you have game stuff, you have a game jam, but put that on. I see a lot of student projects where it's like, oh, it's on the portfolio page. But don't leave it just to that, because again, you're trying to like compete and you have only seconds. So like, can we make it something where it is easily seen there what your actual game is and what it is? Because sometimes it's like, hey, I really need someone that knows how to do combat. I need someone that does this. Or it's like, hey, I want someone that has a really emotional game and a story-driven game and sees that. And this sounds like a cool mechanic too. So then it's like, okay, you designed this. Like I would hope that would be on your portfolio. From the design side is like, how did you design this? What were your intentions? What's your like game design doc? All that kind of thing. Yeah, here you go. Solo prototype, 14-day narrative, player choice. Again, these are all cool things. And again, when you're looking for a game design role, you're probably going to see on that job description, I know I'm harping on this, they might ask, hey, like we want someone that can do multiple characters, player choice, dynamic endings. So that's good to highlight these types of things here too. If you have, I would hope again, there's a portfolio or something where I can see these. it's just getting a 30-person student project. I like seeing this too, because again, for me, this helps show that like, hey, this person worked with other people. You had to explain as a game designer, you probably had to explain to an artist, hey, that's not going to work because of this. Or you had to explain to a programmer, hey, this needs to work this way because of game design, right? You had to cross discipline and do communication. So I like seeing that. Brand ambassador, stuff like volunteering, brand ambassador, those types of things are cool. I do like the skills. Again, for me, I think a different template would help this better, and something that lets you dive more into this, because I'm definitely intrigued by this when I see projects, but I want to know more about them, and I want to know what you did more specifically too. And game designers, again, we had 2 design roles. They're gonna lean pretty hard on the portfolio, so also be thinking about that portfolio. And one just general tip. If you're doing a portfolio, don't just do an 𝐬𝐿 page and expect them to play your game, which I know kind of sucks, but 𝐬𝐿 page or a hey, play my game demo is not the same thing as a portfolio showcasing your game. So I see a lot of early career students be like, hey, I linked to my game, and I go to click on it and it makes me play it. And to me, I'm like, I just want to see what you did. I don't know if this game I'm playing is actually a 20-person project that you had a little bit of part in, or if it's this. So, play my game is not a portfolio. So I would really look at portfolios. If you find game designers on LinkedIn, just stalk a bunch of your favorite games studios, see what their design portfolios look like. But that's a really good trick that I'd say that could maybe also benefit this person too. All right, let's do my next one, and then we'll jump back into questions for you brave folks that have stuck around listening to me yammer for so long. Yeah, and again, especially for this group, yeah, DM me. I can't promise timing on how fast I'll get to it, but I will get to it as soon as I can if I can't give you some feedback in today. Especially with the holiday, it's going to be a little bit delayed, but yeah, I will try my best to review as many as I can and give some high-level feedback. All right, let's look at this one. Another game designer and QA tester. So this is going to be pretty design focused as opposed to programming or artist, but a lot of these tricks will apply both ways here too. Okay, like the general format, you as a recruiter, you start to recognize a lot of the same resume templates. Definitely have seen this one before. This is a good example. Okay, no, sorry, I need to focus. I got distracted. Let me focus and read first. This is now turning into a, reading stream. Okay. Overall, I don't mind this I'm trying to say template. Again, it's easy to see titles, it's easy to see roles. The skills here. This is, I think, an example of some of the skills and things I would tweak. Leadership, curiosity, creativity. These are all very soft skills. I would try to keep skills section here to something that is more of a hard skill. Technical, game engines. If you're a game designer, do you use any softwares to do this? Do you use any project management software? Like, one of the things you're going to see from a game designer is looking for people that don't just make good games, but can they communicate with other people? Do they have, do they know how to work with the producer? Do they know how to work with the project manager? So I personally would take out some of these more generic skills and replace them with hard skills. When I see collaboration on a skill thing, that's almost like, to me, it's almost like that's kind of a bare minimum for if you're applying to a role, you should be able to collaborate with others. Show me something else that's unique to you. Interest is an interesting thing to put on here. I personally would not prioritize an interest. I always think of the white space you're giving up, right? By putting something like this on here, you're taking away white space from the actual things that might be asked for in the job description. That maybe, if I have a couple seconds to scan this resume, what else could be here that I could see that could be related to the job description to say, hey, this person knows Unreal, they've done blueprints, they've also designed cool games. There's a lot of overlap in D&D and game design, I'll tell you that much. Like, designing for TTRPGs, for paper, for board games is the same as designing for video games, just different tools. But I personally would make this, again, more hard skills focused. LinkedIn learning and certifications, yeah, I don't mind putting on there just to show other things. And this almost, I wonder if this is almost more like a master resume that we talked about that you would edit. because I think again, there's empty white space here. To me, if there's empty white space on a 2-pager, I start thinking about, hey, can you get rid of some things to make this a really dense, packed 1-pager that's easy to navigate? Is one of the things that I think about there. All right, I'm definitely losing my voice. Let me drink more water here. We're almost there. And then for this QA tester game designer, again, I think there's some really good things here. The initial things I would focus on here for the bullet points. Promotions are great to highlight. Is I would try to make these more focused on deliverables and KPIs and numbers, and just can you put are there any things that have been tracked in this job that you can show more impact on? So like, was there an impact of creating this documentation? Did it lead to less tickets overall submitted? Did it lead to improved, what am I trying to say? I'm really losing words at the end of the day. Did it lead to any impact? Can you show, like, back up these statements here with something that actually is more deliverable and numbers, for lack of a better term? Can I show me the numbers? And then again, since these again aren't, these won't be related. Well, maybe bookstore. These won't be related to potentially like a testing or a game design role. Again, good to have on your master resume. Keep that on there. It shows professional experience, which is good. We like to see people that have professional experience. But in a targeted resume, if it's a true game design resume, can we do something that's more like related experience? Keep this, QA is great to have, but then show off more of your design chops instead of this, and show off, hey, this is a personal project. Like move your project steps up there. Maybe some of the things you're learning in this, like your boot camp, some of your Unreal projects, can we show more of those projects there? And again, stuff like this, you just always have to be thinking about, like, okay, if these are the only things, if a recruiter is going to be looking at this resume for a game design role, do I really want them looking at all of this, or do I want them looking at maybe a game design project I'm working on? So to me, I think for this resume, I would just say, like, move about your skills. I would personally not do interest ones, and I would work on some of those projects and portfolios and things that are more related to the roles that you're looking at in terms of designing. Test could be good. Again, test QA, showing things that, like, hey, you do have some great experience in this current role right here, or this past role. But especially if you go in game design, I would try to buff up some of those projects, some of that portfolio piece, and put that on it, as opposed to some of these other things that may not be as related to that role, unless maybe it is more something. Because the other thing I think about for you, if you have editing and you have copywriting, and you've been an artist, copy and graphics, just spitballing here, but to me that also could be something that's more of a marketing role, and maybe communications, community management. One thing I tend to see a lot with people too is that you sell some of your experience short. You have some good experience there. Maybe you don't have as much experience with game design quite yet. Are there things in the meantime, like, hey, if you've edited manuscripts, if you've done technical writing, documentation, that might open you up to more jobs than just game design and QA testing there too. But that'd be some of my feedback on this one. Better, I like the template a little bit better, but I'd say let's up those portfolios and projects if you're going for game design roles, or potentially, if this is your master resume, how can you then take all this and really make it more specific to the job you're applying to? All right, 5:30. Let me get out of here to back to the questions for a little bit and make sure that how we looking in the chats here. And again, I will fully admit I am not the biggest resume expert by any means. I'm still learning stuff. A lot of this stuff I see is just because I've seen this. But I know the HTC community has resume review. Entry level has the review corner that Stacy pinged in there too. It never hurts to get feedback. Get more feedback on your resume than you think you might need. Yeah, thank you, Stacy, for the tea. Yep, I always get a little scratchy after talking for so much. So that is definitely what I'll be doing after this. Okay, it looks like we are pretty good on questions. All right, again, if I only take one to total sum up, I spent a lot of time in education, right? So we gotta wrap up. Think of your resume like a character sheet. How can it show your most important information and your best information? And then have that mindset change from the resume representing all of you to your resume being target to show that you are the person for that job, whether, and again, have that self-awareness to know if that's accurate or not would be my big takeaways from today. And again, get looked at by other people. You have a lot of resources out there available to you for support. And this is probably gonna be an ongoing thing. I still get my resume tweaked. I'm a recruiter, right? I should know everything. And it's like, I still will get my resume looked at by friends and be like, I totally missed that. I did not even see that I had this typo or I had this. So always get it looked at by other people. Oh yeah, Stacey, thank you for shouting that out. Find me on Blue Sky. Connect, DM me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat. I'm pretty delayed on LinkedIn just because I get a lot of messages. But I'm also trying to get back into streaming. Luke Talks Games Live. I'm trying to do streaming and do these types of talks and resume talks Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning time. So we'll get back now that we've moved and get back my setup there. But yeah, always happy to answer as many questions as I can. So thank y'all for joining.
Thank you so much, Luke. This was super cool. And I know like even the folks that like didn't submit a resume, just from the chat alone, like everyone like benefited so much. Like I know I learned a ton of things that squashed some maybe common like rumors or kind of like folktale-y kind of stuff when it comes to ATS. So it was really, really cool to see kind of like an insider info. I'm not going to hold you too much longer, but again, folks who are dropping in, thank you so much for dropping in. And again, we've linked all of Luke's really cool, really awesome stuff. So please go check him out. Go follow his Blue Sky, LinkedIn, Twitch, all those cool things.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, literally.
Oh man.
And we'll keep this recording. We'll be uploading it to YouTube if you guys are a little bit worried about that. So yeah, it's there forever. Thank you so much, Luke. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a happy holidays.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Happy holidays.
Take care, folks.
Bye.
Bye.